welcome to another of King's educational event, right? I'm your host, Joel Dizon, and in this episode, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be diving into the interactive process development workshop, right? Let's learn a little bit more about Lean Six Sigma, right? And the approaches and the techniques that we're going to be, practicing on, because this whole interactive process is for us to learn and interact, right? You may have noticed that I'm actually wearing an apron, right? And for a good reason, right? Because I'm in the kitchen too. We're hoping that everyone else that's working from home would have the same idea. Because guess what? We're actually going to make a pizza while we learn, right? Let's kick this off. But firstly, I'd like to introduce the lady who's actually making this all happen, right? She's the one who's organizing this and making all of this event fruitful, right? She gives me sometimes a hard time, but guess what? I love her so much for that. And our lovely account executive, Dorota Olkowska.
Thank you so much, Joel. You know, we're recording this, that you love me very much. And now when you give me a hard time, I'll just loop back to that particular saying. So thank you. Hello, everybody. I think everybody here knows me. My name is Dorota, the account executive for Shing Digital. Just a very brief intro as to who Shing Digital is, just in case for whatever reason you forgot. We are an IT services organization, and we focus on many different areas of IT support and procurement and cybersecurity. But what we really like to do is to keep all of our clients and contacts educated with regards to the IT industry, and also with regards to things like what we're doing today, which is process development, mapping, and improvement. Especially during COVID, it is so very important to stay engaged, stay on top of new information. And so we're incredibly happy that you are here. We are recording this session, so we will be sending you a copy of the recording just in case you want to go through it again or share it with other individuals within the organization. Any questions, please put it in the chat. And we will be going through the questions throughout the actual event or after, depending on what is more appropriate. Now, as we're making the pizzas, we have a request, if you don't mind, because it's hard to include everybody on video. So as you're making your pizza, if you could take a photo and on any social media, if you post it and put a hashtag, it's a Shing thing, I'll put it in the chat so you know what I'm talking about, that will link back to us. And that way we can see all of your fantastic pizzas. So the next question that I have, and I'm hoping that there you go, Cash put it in, it's a Shing thing. The next question that I have is, I asked everybody to print out your handbooks that we sent out via email. If you don't have it printed out, as long as you have it on a screen so you can work on it. Again, this is an interactive event, and we're hoping that after you make your pizza and as you're eating it, you are actually filling out the handbook as Alwyn is going through it. So that's my piece. Over to you, Joel. Thanks.
All right. So yeah, take note of that. It's a Shing thing. Hashtag it's a Shing thing, because we want everyone to be able to, show off what they've actually baked after we make the pizza. But again, the next fine gentleman who will be demonstrating the art of making pizza, right? And he's in his own personal way, right? He is what we call the pizza fanatic, right? Trevor Olkowski.
Howdy, howdy. It's good to be here with you all. And again, this is not all about pizza, but really at the end of the day, it's all about pizza, isn't it, Alwyn? It's
exactly.
The process development in making pizza versus the process development in making a gargantuan multi-billion-dollar corporation efficient. I mean, it's exactly the same, right?
It's pretty
at
darn
the end of
close.
the day. But now, Alwyn, did you want to say a couple of words before we jump into the pizza making, or do we want to get right into it here?
I'll say a couple of words. I know people are like, why is he speaking? Why is he speaking? My stomach is rumbling. Okay, so I'll make it super quick. The handbook that you have there today, what we're going to do is this fun interactive session. We're going to walk you through the entire activity of basically running through a process improvement initiative today. We are using the Lean Six Sigma methodology to walk you through it. Again, it's going to be interactive, so really the intent is that we have a little bit of fun, not only with the pizza, but with the process improvement activities. And we do sincerely hope that you get something out of this today, whether it's improvement activities for your department or your organization. And if you have questions along the way, I'm quite sure any of us are going to be happy to pause for a moment to see if we can answer those for you.
Perfect. And I'm going to kind of add one more thing as well, in that today I get to mainly eat pizza. So I'm really happy about that. So making everyone else here do all the work, and hopefully I do all the eating. But we do want to make this interactive, and we realize that, as you've got a pizza in your hand and trying to munch down, it might be a little bit hard to type in some questions. So by all means, if you guys want to ask questions or be interactive and use your microphones to interact with us, just virtually raise your hand, and what we'll do is we'll unmute you guys, and then we can certainly have that discussion. And this way, if there's something that's a little bit more involved that you want to talk about, we can certainly have that. We want to make this as interactive as possible.
Yeah, we definitely want to hear from everyone, and we would like to, again, make it interactive as much as possible. This is what this whole event is all about. So take it away, guys.
Okay, I think it's pizza time.
It is.
All right.
So we're going to talk about pizza. We're going to go through here and make a pizza with you guys here, and we're going to talk a little bit about process development. And as we do this, Alwyn and I were sitting there chatting, and we were going, how do we describe process development in terms of making a pizza? And at the end of the day, we all have a vision in our head of what kind of pizza we want to eat. Some people want a Neapolitan style pizza. Some people want a thick crust Detroit style pizza with the sauce on the top. Some people want something else. And we all have this picture in our head of what we want. To get to there, we all start at the same place. And Alwyn, we've actually built sort of a process map here where, the first part of it is selecting a recipe, selecting the ingredients, doing all of those types of things. And that's the thing that we did with you here today first. We went through that process. And we're actually starting partway through the pizza making process here with you, because we've already picked all the ingredients, we've picked the recipe for you, we've got the methodology, and that's what we're going to do next. Anything to add to that, Alwyn, before I tip my camera down here and walk you guys through the pizza making process?
No way, man. I'm not getting in the way of people and their pizza.
Okay, everybody got a kit here, and you're going to get rid of my ugly mug here, and we're going to look at some pizza ingredients, and then I'm gonna do some demos here as we go. So you guys got some pizza ingredient kits. I should have labeled these and numbered them, but the first thing that looks like flour is actually flour. So start off, I think we gave you guys some instructions. I think I forgot the instructions and some of the things, but we're basically just gonna dump flour on a plate. And by the way, I had to sort this out for a long time so everybody could do it. Oh, Joel's got his going there on camera too. That's awesome. The flour is just a little something because the dough itself that I've kind of developed over the last 12 years is quite sticky. So when you're actually stretching the dough, and we're going to get to that in a second, you're going to want lots of flour or semolina or whatever else it is that you want. In this case, gluten-free people, I put gluten-free flour in yours, and for anybody else, we've got just regular flour. Secondly, the dough. Well, and I say the dough is the show. If everybody's going to open the dough, it's pretty sticky. You're going to have to coax it a little bit. It's a high hydration dough. Why a sticky dough versus a firm dough? It's because of the end result of what I'm looking for. So in our process development, I've got an end result that pictures a light, sort of airy, porous kind of bar style pizza. That's kind of my idea of a really good pizza. As you go through your own pizza, process development, you might want a Neapolitan style pizza. You might want a California style pizza. You might want something else. But for everybody, this is kind of more like my style of pizza and what I like to do. Now with the dough, you notice I just dumped it into the flour, which everybody should have done. I just grab this gently, I flip it over again. It's really sticky. You want lots of flour on it. And in this case, the flour doesn't affect, any kind of problems. Once you've got flour everywhere, what do you know? It's pretty easy to handle. So you're going to take your fingers, and first you're going to define an edge gently. You don't want to actually deflate all the bubbles. Well, I don't want to deflate the bubbles because my idea of the perfect pizza has lots of air bubbles in it. Once you've defined the edge, you're going to start pushing the air from the center of the pizza. You're not pushing the air out, you're just pushing it towards that defined edge. And that's going to make up your crust. There's actually a word for it, cornicogne. That's the crust texture in Italian. Once you've kind of pushed it out to a certain extent, what you're going to want to do is you're not going to want to push it anymore because you're going to start pushing air bubbles out. This is where it gets fun. I actually take and I get my pan ready, close to me. If you're doing a pan or your pizza peel or anything else like that. I'm just going to put this on the side. Then I'm going to pick up my dough. And what's awesome is, I'm going to turn this up here just a little bit, is you're going to take your fist, you're going to put it underneath the dough. Look at that. I like Joel's there. Joel's is looking good. And then you're just going to turn it. You're just letting gravity do the work. And there's no right or wrong way to do this, really, as long as you don't get too sticky with it. But that's it. You're letting gravity do the work. Now, some people might want a thicker pizza, and you're going to stop right here, this size, give or take, about a 10-inch. Some people might want it thinner. So keep going around, doing a little stretch, little stretch, little stretch. Again, you want all those, look at those little air bubbles in there. That is all going to be texture. Again, we're reaching my idea in the process development of an awesome pizza. And once you're done, here, let me do this here. I'm going to just lay it on your pan, however you've prepared it. So whether it's a nice hex pan like I've got, or an oiled pan. I see Joel in the background there is oiling. Any of you with a gluten-free crust, you guys are going to reach a point, you're not going to be able to stretch it like this. You're actually going to place your dough in a greased pan and you're going to press it out. It's a very different, it's a different beast. It'll tear apart if you don't do it that way. If it does tear apart though, just push it back together. Super forgiving, super forgiving. You could actually take chunks of gluten-free dough and just drop it in the pan if you wanted to. And then after that, it's really just topping it how you want. You know, throughout the process of developing this pizza recipe, you know, I personally have discovered that less is more. So I go for big flavors and whatever. But I'm going to go ahead and do the vegetarian pizza today. But this is however much sauce you want. I put enough sauce in these containers that people that want it soupy can have it soupy. People that want it dry can have it dry. It's kind of up to you. Again, it's your idea in the process of how you want that end result pizza to turn out. And by the way, we are going to show you a process map of this whole thing at the end, how to analyze what you did right, what you did wrong, how you did it. And we're going to apply it back to the process development when it comes to you guys as companies and any IT initiatives or anything else like that. So there we go. Anybody who's doing pepperoni right now, it's your choice. You can put the pepperoni down now and the cheese on top, or nice pizza there, Joel. Or you can put the cheese down first and the pepperoni on top. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen the pepperoni that kind of cups up and turns into grease martini. That's like the ultimate pepperoni experience right there. But I think the pepperoni I sent you guys is a dry pepperoni, so it doesn't quite do that. For anybody who's doing the vegetarian pizza, I'm going to put down a light layer of just the aged mozzarella. When I say aged, it's just normal mozzarella. It's a pizza mozzarella, 28%. And this is going to be the margherita pizza here. Now you're going to notice I actually don't put the basil on a margherita pizza until the pizza's done because I don't like my pizza turning black or my basil turning black. So I'm going to leave this till the end when it comes out of the oven. But I am going to put my little fresh mozza place it around. Now, some people in a hot oven like this, they might put their fresh mozza at the end so it doesn't sort of melt into the whole pizza in one big lump. They like to have, they're very distinctive, but it doesn't really matter. It all tastes awesome. And there we go. That is, you've just all made a homemade pizza ready for the oven. And now we're going to go ahead and stick it in the oven. Now, in terms of the process development, I don't know if Alan's going to show this yet or not, but at this point, we're actually get into the process in a big way, because once we put this in the oven, we have a few choices to make here. One is, I'm going to go ahead and put this in here by a 550-degree oven. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on to 7 minutes, which it says it in our process development map there. I think Alan's going to show this to you at some point. Oh, looks good there, Cash. Cash's pizza.
My first
awesome.
try at this, so.
I know, that's good.
Dorota's, I saw it looked good. I didn't see yours, Cash. Oh, nice.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Good job, guys.
So I stuck my pizza in the oven, set the timer for 7 minutes, which we're going to see on the process map. And then at 7 minutes, we're going to take a look at it. And this is where we have a whole bunch of choices that we're going to look at in terms of the process of making a pizza. You know, we're going to do an analysis at the time. We're going to look and see visually. Does it look done? Is it underdone? Is it overdone? Do we need to put it back in? If so, for how long until we get that perfect pizza? And that's where we're at right now. Any questions, or I think we can go to you now, Alan. Everybody
I'm just going to totally interject here and say that was literally the easiest pizza I've ever made, except for actually ordering it. So well done. The dough was really fun, and can't wait to eat it. I'm curious. Is everybody putting their pizzas into the ovens? Like, what are some comments? Let's. Well,
did you want them to do a photo of it before and after they put it in the oven with it's a Shing thing, or just afterwards?
Yeah,
whatever you want in the oven.
I'd like to see some of them.
Okay,
so
cool.
You have a process of before and after.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, you know,
Take a photo before and after. Yeah.
When we were planning this out with Trevor, I thought I was going to be like throwing the dough in the air and spinning it.
You absolutely could have. You should have. I would have liked to have seen that.
I think you should have.
You could have done the example of what not to do. So, oh well.
It probably would have wound up on my ceiling. So
the trick is in the figure, as Trevor said.
Right on. Okay, so we've got probably 5 minutes or so before we're pulling those pizzas out of the oven. So, all right, we're going to get started a little bit here. Let me just bring up the slide, make sure the sharing works. Share, portion. And let's see. I'll show you guys the process map a little bit later, as Trevor had mentioned. But okay, so hopefully your stomachs aren't rumbling too loud. In the meantime, let's crack open those handbooks. So hopefully each of you had a chance to download those handbooks. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be going over today. So first of all, just some quick background. I guess some quick background for myself. I've been an operational leader and process specialist or process consultant for over 20 years now. I've worked at a variety of organizations within, such as like Shaw, FGL Sports, Marks, and Canadian Tire. And then as a consultant, I've worked with a variety of clients in industries ranging from aviation to construction to IT, of course. Some of those, like I've worked with the Calgary Airport Authority and TELUS, Boardwalk Property Management, REIT, and of course Shing Digital are some of those examples. And it's been an interesting thing that I'd like to share over the past year. So looking at 2020, right, the pandemic began just over a year ago. A lot of business, it really did, no matter what your business was, you were impacted by COVID, no question. And absolutely, at least one, if not tons of your processes were impacted. One of the bigger impacts that we saw was, you know, now because of this COVID pandemic, I've got resource constraints. I've had to, you know, downsize my workforce. Another common concern that came up last year was capital restraints. Okay, we're not bringing in the same revenue that we did because of this pandemic. So we need to look at our processes. How do we become more efficient? How do we cut costs or save on our expenses? How do we increase profitability? And the other component, of course, that comes out of that is What about regulatory risk and compliance? What sorts of things came up? So for example, if you were a company that, say, manufactures hand sanitizer, you're absolutely, impacted by that. Your processes really need to be clear from a regulatory and compliance perspective about how much, say, alcohol content goes into that hand sanitizer, and what's the quality testing that is performed on that. So move it to 2021. A lot of people, a lot of industries and organizations are talking about process improvement, even more so than 2020. So it's really about how do we become way better than we were before. We're doing hiring. Some of us, like Shing Digital or other companies, experiencing some significant growth, which is amazing. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we can scale properly. So process improvement and process activities and development make that all possible. So big topic in 2021. So the handbook that you guys have in front of you, you can use it over and over again, whether you print it out, you share it, or you want to fill it out electronically. And just as a note, as we get started here, what I'm basically doing is I'm running through the Lean Six Sigma methodology with you for process improvement. How to get the most is to simply be interactive, follow along with your handbook. We really want you to get something out of this. So think about, if you haven't already coming to the webinar, think about the problem, the process problem that you're trying to solve today. It might be a department problem. It might be a manufacturing problem, service delivery. It could be a larger organization. You might be looking at the end-to-end customer experience as a process that has some problems in it. So keep that in mind as you work through this so that it's useful and valuable for you. So phase one, there's 5 phases called define, measure, analyze, improve, and control in the Lean Six Sigma methodology. And we're going to go through the first one, which is define. So the goals of the define phase are fairly simple. Number one is to identify the process problem. So what is the problem that we're trying to address here? I'm going to pause for a moment. Trevor, how much time do we have left before the pizzas are good to go?
Sorry, I went on mute there for a second. We are 46 seconds until I actually look at the pizza to see where it is.
So as soon as I've done this slide, because there's only one more point, great, then we'll pause.
Okay.
So the second one is identify the key stakeholders. Pretty much important for anything, whether it's a project initiative or it's a process improvement, change management activity, you need to identify those key stakeholders. And then the third one is better understand the process and scope. And we're going to go through exercises to show you how to do that. So I'll pause here so we can check out those pizzas and make sure they're not burnt.
They're not going to be burnt. Okay, let's have a look here. That's not bad. I'm actually going to return mine just for about 1 minute. As I look at it, I just want a bit of crispiness up on the top here. But how's everybody else's looking?
Not bad. I've got another 18 seconds before I take mine out. So
there you go.
Mine looks
That's looking good.
That's
looking
fantastic.
great. I think that is good enough for me.
Yeah, I'm putting it for another minute.
So it's funny in terms of our process development, and Alan's going to do a process map here pretty soon. This is our juncture right now. So you look at the pizza. So you've done all of these first steps, and you give it a visual. Is it cooked where I want it? Is it undercooked? Is it overcooked? And then what do I do at the next step? In this case, I thought mine was undercooked, so I put it back in, and then it's going to go back around for a minute, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to visually inspect it again. And if it's good at that point, then I've completed my whole process. I've actually taken it through to completion. Now, if I open it up the next time and I've gone too far, then I might not have ended up at the spot I want. So my process has failed, and I need to go back and analyze everything else, because if it's burnt, then I can't eat it, and it's just a big disappointment. But hopefully a learning one. So here we go. My pizza's coming out. Woo-hoo. I don't think I can tip it too much. Does it look good? What do you think, Alan? The crust look okay? Yeah. That's a crispy pie.
pretty good.
I might have to get my phone out so I can take a look at it. Now, for anybody who's wondering,
on mute. Sorry, Trevor, I might have been on mute, so hopefully you didn't hear my drooling.
It's okay. So this is, while we're in here, you guys can take and anybody who has the vegetarian pizzas, you guys have basil. You can toss onto this. That's one of the garnishes. I gave you guys Malden sea salt. The Malden salt is a really nice way to finish a pizza. It's just a little light sprinkling. Again, this is my defined, this is the way I like my pizzas. And then for those of you who like a little spice, a little bit of hot chilies. Again, that's a personal preference. And a little bit of Parmigiano Reggiano, which somebody on the phone there, I think their chilies and Parmesan are already mixed. So if you're going to use that, that's due to bad packaging. And that's it.
Wow, that looks great.
We have completed a successful process management. Oh, for those of you who don't like ripping your basil, you can always use scissors too.
It smells so good in my place right now. That cheese and the pepperoni. Oh, so good.
Yeah,
And is anybody, this is a Thursday afternoon, isn't that the COVID new Friday? So is everybody cracking it? Is everybody cracking a beer here too with their pizzas?
I think you
that's
all
a great
should.
idea.
There we go.
I would, but I'd begin slurring the presentation. It'd be terrible. Terribly funny anyway.
Let's see. I'm gonna check mine now. Ooh, it looks great.
So as far as I'm concerned, Trevor, this webinar has been a total success.
Well, as far as I'm concerned too, just wait till I dig into
yeah.
this. Now, while we were actually, while we were talking, I actually put together a gluten-free pizza. So I'm going to throw that in, and then later on we can chat with the gluten-free people. I didn't pay much attention to you guys this time, but for time's sake. But I actually used a sided pizza pan for mine and pressed it out. So we'll see how this goes. This is going in the oven right now. But back to you, Alan.
Oh, very cool. Okay. Well,
Can I just ask a very quick question that I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about?
Yeah.
When can we cut into this bad boy?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So I'm of the opinion that I don't want to scald my mouth, and I want to be able to taste all of the toppings. So I typically leave mine a minimum of 5 minutes, and often as much as 10 minutes after it's done cooking, because otherwise I just, burn my mouth with sauce, stringy cheese down my chin. But I do understand that allure. It's yummy. But I typically 5 to 10 minutes, I just let it sit and let it do what it needs to do.
Okay, so should we keep going for about 5 minutes then?
Yeah, let's go on for 5 minutes.
Okay. So I'm going to pause for a sec there, because in case folks they're busy pulling their pizzas out of the oven, they're taking a look, they half ate into it, and then Trevor said, "Well, wait, don't do that." Now they've taken it out of their mouth and they're letting it sit.
Well, some people love a molten pizza, man. That is what they like, and you know what? I'm not here to argue with it.
Right.
I tell you the way I like it, but there is no one way. Pizza is just, that's the beauty of it. There's no one way. You want pineapple on your pizza? Put pineapple on your pizza.
There you go.
You want to put, whatever else. You want to take your pad thai that's left over from last night and do a pad thai pizza? Man, we could talk forever on how to set that up so it works good. So
arugula.
Yeah. I do have salad conversations sometimes about on pizza. I'll accept it if it's been sautéed in some fat and some alcohol.
Nice.
Judging from the comments, some people have wine open already, so you're making me
jealous. I got to get into the comments
awesome.
Here. I think I broke my.
May or may not have wine. Love it.
Yeah, exactly. And I realized when I posted the hashtag earlier, I only posted it to the panelists, so I reposted it to all the attendees as well.
Bud Light, yes. All right. Well, actually, you made a really good point, Trevor. I just want to pause on that. You made a comment about, there's no one way for how to enjoy your pizza, or necessarily, although you've obviously built a reproducible process for, creating the pizza, like you said, there's no one way to enjoy it. Someone might want to eat it after 30 seconds out of the oven. Another person waits 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And the toppings that you put on it, it's different. I just want to highlight and pause there for a moment, because There'll be different perspectives, right, when it comes to methodologies and framework, whether it's the project methodology like waterfall or agile, whether it's a process improvement methodology like Lean Six Sigma, total quality management, or anything else for that matter, making a pizza. The point of ITIL actually is another key one. And I'm an ops guy at heart, so I've implemented ITIL through and through. And what the frameworks are great for is kind of building that foundation for us in terms of the best practices. But the beauty in the full implementation comes from how we learn to adapt it to the needs and value of our organization, right? So like ITIL as an example, the best practices don't tell you exactly you need to do it this way each and every time, and this is the only way that it's possible to be successful. It's not like that in the real world. Everything you learned in school, it's not exactly like that textbook said in the real world as well. So I think having a framework running off of it with best practices in mind is awesome, but we have to be adaptable. We really have to understand the whole point of the framework at the end of the day. And if it's to please the customer, then you got to figure it's got to please the customer. If it's to produce a consistent product, it's got to produce a consistent product. So no matter what the book says, there's times when we need to adapt that properly. Okay. So we're going to keep going here. The next part here is, got to click that. Okay, so the very first activity in your handbook is going to be the problem statement. Now again, we're starting from the define phase here. So if you've already got to the point in your organization where, we already know that we need to improve this particular process or number of processes, you may already have done this. You may already have this in mind. You and 5 other people may inherently know exactly what the problem is anyway. However, it's important to write it out so that so everybody has the same understanding of it, and as well it can be shared with other people so that they can hop onto hop on board with where you're trying to go and the benefits of the process improvement. So the problem statement itself is just a 1 or 2 sentence statement that simply outlines when, where, what, how many, and what's the impact. So I'll give you an example here. So here's an example of a good problem statement. In the past month, complaints about the quality of our pizzas have increased. And by the way, you're going to see this theme along through this process improvement activity. We're going to talk about pizza. We're going to talk about service delivery. We're going to talk some more about pizza. So complaints about the quality of our pizzas have increased from 5 to 20% in our Calgary region. We average 200 orders per day, and we need to rework 30 additional orders per day. At a cost of $22 for rework, the cost impact per month is $19,800. Now you might want to put an annual amount around that if you want, but we've covered all the things. So what is the issue? The issue is the quality of our pizzas. When? Recently. So average per day. In the past month, in the past 30 days is when. The where is the Calgary region. So we know it's not the Saskatoon region, for example. How many? We know we average 200 orders per day, and 30 is the additional reworked orders. And then lastly, what's the impact, the magnitude of that impact? Well, it's costing us almost $20,000 a month if we just let things be. All right, so problem statement, that kind of determines where everything goes from here. Trevor, do we need to pause to eat? I feel like I do, but I don't have a pizza. So
sure, let's pause to eat and cut a slice. We'll see. I think this is this is cool enough to go here. I don't know if you guys can hear this or not, but this is for me. Half of the reason for developing a pizza dough recipe like this is because of that amazing crisp, that crunch as you cut into it, and that when you were stretching the dough, you could see the bubbles. I don't know if you guys could see this here.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
But the crispiness and the way that puffed up, everything else like that. And by the way, when you get a little bit, used to this is the way your pizza is going to turn out every time. And this is to me is just kind of a slice of heaven. But yeah, look at that. I could stare at this all day, but it makes this awesome crunch, but I'm going to eat it.
Okay, well, I'm going to carry on because I know that we only have, I think till, what time do we have? Till 4:30 today? Is that the time check? So I'm going to continue on because just in case we get to the end and we want to make sure there's time for questions and whatnot. So I'll carry on while you guys get to enjoy your pizza. All right, so next here. So one of the major activities, as I mentioned before, is stakeholder analysis. So the exercise that I've given you here, that if you want to use it, is called the stakeholder analysis matrix. And it's simply plotting individual stakeholders, the power, and this is legitimate power that they have in the organization. So what that means is they're in a position to actually make decisions on how something is going to proceed or not to proceed. And I'll explain what lack of legitimate power might look like. And then across interests. So how interested are they in supporting or in the results of your process improvement initiative? So let's just say in our pizza example, we have a regional manager. And let's say that regional manager has a lot of power within the organization, especially for the Calgary region. And this particular regional manager is very interested in this process improvement activity. You would put them in the upper right corner of this quadrant. So then let's say you have an operations manager for the Calgary region in a particular store or whatnot. And they do hold an amount of power in terms of decision making and how things will roll. But let's just say this particular operation manager, for some reason, isn't very interested in your project. They should probably be moved over here somehow, but we're just saying this is the case, and you need to work through that. Customer. Here's an example of where you would have an individual, a stakeholder who has what you would consider power to affect change in the organization because they're a customer and their voice matters and their dissatisfaction matters, but they don't actually hold legitimate power in the organization. So they don't hold a role or a position or a title in the company that has decision-making authority. It's not that they don't have influence. It's not that we don't care about the customers, but they don't have what's called legitimate power within the organization to make change. Okay. And the last one, we'll say the cook. The cook, for some reason, doesn't have a lot of interest in this either, but they also, in this case, again, I'm making these up, so you have to customize it to what makes sense for your organization. And let's just say in this case, the cook in that one particular location doesn't hold a lot of power to change what's going on. So that's basically the stakeholder analysis matrix. And let's say you are an IT service delivery shop. So your stakeholders might look a little bit different. You might have a VP of sales who's very interested in a process improvement activity. You might have an ops manager who's also equally interested and does hold an amount of power. Let's say you're making process improvement changes that are going to affect infrastructure. Let's say the infrastructure manager has quite a bit of power and influence, but actually doesn't have a lot of interest in your initiative. And then let's say the service delivery manager has a lot of interest, but not a lot of power. So what's the point of the stakeholder analysis matrix? Basically put, if they are in the upper left power, which means they have or upper left quadrant, which means they have a lot of power, but not a lot of interest, it's your job to keep them satisfied because they can influence the process improvement activity, but they're not that interested in it itself. If they're in the lower quadrant, it's minimal effort, so they don't have a lot of power to affect this process, and they don't have a lot of interest, minimal effort. There's not a lot of time you're going to spend there with updates or collaboration. A lot of interest, but not a lot of power. Keep them informed. These are advocates of the change or the process improvement activities. So you want to keep them informed, but recognizing that they don't have legitimate power or that much of it in the organization. And then, of course, the ones who are in the upper right quadrant really are your key players. They're folks who are very vested in they're interested in the success of your process improvement initiative, and they wield a lot of power within the organization. Okay, next exercise. The CPOC diagram just simply stands for suppliers, inputs, process outputs, and customers. The whole point of this, if you want to use it, is to better understand your process. So in the case of pizza, who's our supplier? Trevor, we might have a cheese vendor. And inputs would look like, okay, we receive an order. That could be an input. One of our processes would be, as Trevor so wonderfully showed us, which is to cook the pizza. The output of that cooking pizza process is a cooked pizza. And who are the customers? Well, in our case, it's us. We're the individuals. If let's say we take a help desk example, your suppliers' inputs, processes, process outputs, and customers may be different than if it were a pizza shop. Okay, and I'm going to run through these fairly in an abbreviated fashion because I know we could go into a lot of detail in a lot of these all day long, and I'd be happy to, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and I know we don't have that much today. Okay. So this other activity I'll show you is called the in and out of the box. And this is just simply a scope exercise. It's something it's a great team exercise. You put up a whiteboard 3M large, stick it on the wall, and you can use stick-it notes. And all this does is it helps the team understand exactly what is in scope and what is not. So in our example with the pizza, we saw that Calgary is in scope and outside of Calgary is not in scope. We know that pizza's in scope, but maybe there's no issue of quality related to our chicken wings or our donairs. So pizza, yes, out of scope, chicken wings, no hairs. We also know that cooking pizza obviously has something to do with this, so it's going to be considered in scope. But let's just say the findings were that it has to do with the pizza quality, and so I put delivering pizza is out of scope. But hey, you know what? Again, to be adaptable, maybe you found some information that says, well, the issue with the pizza quality is that it's cold when it gets there. So then maybe delivering pizza actually is in scope. So I put that there specifically so you can kind of consider how things may or may not be in or out of scope.
Yeah, and that's great. I'm just going to kind of sort of pause there for a second, Al. And this is really important to be able to recognize what is and is not in scope in a project, because anything, whether it be process improvement, whether it be a project, if you aren't defining what is in scope, you'll find that you can easily get pulled off into side projects that are related, but take away from the core of what you're trying to accomplish. So this is a really important exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. Well put, Cash. Okay, so the next one here, and this is an example, and this is probably one of my favorite things, but maybe extremely tedious or boring feeling to other people. It's the process map. The process map to me is just a wonderful tool. It's great for aligning people on, when you have a variety of stakeholders that all believe they understand the process, and they do. It's not to say that they don't, but in reality, it actually works a slightly different way. The process map is a great way to align everybody on how something's actually working out there. Because you might have individuals who see a high level viewpoint of it. You have the subject matter experts who are a part of the day in and day out process activity, and they may not see exactly what goes on a day-to-day basis, but the process map is great for that. And this is where we're going to go into a quick activity here, and then we'll pause. The activity is, I'm going to show you how to build a process map pretty quickly here. Trevor's going to be my subject matter expert. So just give me a moment here, and I'm going to switch applications.
Well, while you're switching there, Alan, this is a great way to make sure everybody's on the same page, but it's also an incredible way to be able to go back and repeat the same steps with slightly different parameters, and it really helps identify sort of the variables and the changes in variables and what are happening with those changes as you go. And I had never built a process map of the pizza development process, but as I went through it with you, I went, for any part of this, as I expand the business side. So it's one thing to make a single recipe of pizza dough and to serve people. It's another thing to make 100,000 pizza doughs a year and have it do the exact same thing every time for every person that purchases it. And this process map allows you to duplicate things and change little bits and pieces and then document as you go to identify where you might be going off the rails in a very complicated situation. So it's, I found this whole process quite incredible when it came to just pizza making. And when it comes to troubleshooting anything corporate wise, from IT to finance to legal, so whatever it is you're trying to fix, it's a really good process.
Absolutely. And if I can kind of overlay sort of where we use the process maps as well, and Alan Process Primer really helped us to map out a lot of our processes, because as an IT company, we have so many things coming at us. We have things from service desk perspective to projects to sales to all of the products that we sell and service. How do we capture that in a manner such that as we grow, and Alan alluded to this earlier, we're growing, we're adding people. How do we make that growth consistent? How do we get the training consistent? And so this way we can make everything that we do repeatable and easy to be able to relate to the next group who's going to be coming on. So we've got some pretty big growth plans over the next few years, and a big piece of that is mapping out that process so that we can use that to train. And if we do need to make a tweak, the great thing about this visual process is that you can easily just visually take a look at all of the representations of what you do and be able to change an arrow, change a process, add a process, without having to go through an entire manual to figure out where you need to add it. So this has been extremely helpful for us.
Perfect. And so this is the last part that we'll show you of the design phase before we move on to the measure. Trevor had kind of mentioned this earlier. This is an activity that I went through with him, just so you could see the steps. And really, it starts from, the pizza's desired, in this case, to the point where either pizza desire is satisfied or it's not. So what I'm going to do here is, you can kind of see, we just want to show you that quickly, but I'm going to start with a blank one here. And Trevor is my subject matter expert, is going to kind of walk me through the steps, and I'll show you how we basically build this out. For anybody who is wondering, are there best practices around process mapping and whatnot? There are. You can use, you can adopt a UML, which is Unified Modeling Language, or you can use BPMN or BPMN 2.0, which is probably the most common when it comes to business process building. I do work through BPMN as a standard, and it's kind of the preferred standard that I'd work with. However, I just wanted to mention, like, again, with any framework, it's great to have and establish some basic best practices. But at the end of the day, too, it's really important that we adapt and customize it to what makes sense for the organization. And I'll give you a quick example of what I mean by that. So let's just say I have a bunch of steps here. And then I get to the point where I basically want to have two things happen here, and then I want this process to be complete. Well, I might use something, BPMN would tell you to use something like a gateway or a diamond, and then it'll have a path that goes this way. Oops, wrong object, my bad. Sorry, I've been working on Visio a lot, and I actually like this application better. Sorry, Cash, because I know it's not Microsoft. But when you work on Visio a lot, you begin to forget all the shortcuts and stuff with the other application, and vice versa. So bear with me. Anyway, my point is, let's just say you went through and you created a stream that went this way, and it went this way. And what it would tell you to do is, at the end of that, you're going to take this. Oops, not that. Oh, by the way, people may not know this, but I also work on a Mac, and that's something that I don't often hear the end of from Cash. So
that's because you're on the wrong side of technology, Al. That's
so.
all.
Oh man, so you're making me nervous because I'm working not on Microsoft at all today, and Cash is just laughing. He's just laughing inside, going, "This is exactly what I was telling you." So anyway, in BPMN, you would have something that basically ends up looking like this. You would have a diamond that says, I need to go in two separate paths, and then I need to join them back up. And once they join up, I need to go here. And then let's say after that, I want to end the process. BPM will outline and say, this is probably the proper way to do it. And no matter what, you always want to have this. So even if this final step says, fill your belly with pizza, it still wants you to have a final step that says, and clearly says, this is the end of the process. Okay, so I'm not saying that's wrong, but I am saying that other organizations prefer simplicity. So they'll say, okay, that I get this part. What if we got rid of that? What if we got rid of the way this works? And what if we already knew it ended? Because the pizza's in the guy's stomach. So do we really need to say that it's ending at that point? So a lot of times we're going to simplify the steps so that they're still user-friendly. The user can still understand and follow them. They don't follow a methodology exactly and to the T. And I'm just here to say that that's okay. Because keep in mind too, if everything your organization writes is in BPMN, to have someone else read that, they need to know BPMN. So that means you either give them training, they come pre-trained, or you get to read through that 539 pages yourself. So my suggestion is to do what works and makes sense for your organization, but use a best practice. So, all right. Anyway, off of my soapbox now. Trevor, let's go through a quick process. So what are we starting with here?
Well, we're starting with selecting. We want some pizza, right? Okay,
so pizza's desired.
Yeah.
Got it. Then what do we want?
And then everybody has the type of pizza they want. So you have to decide at this point on a recipe.
Okay. And how many recipes do we have?
A choice of?
Yeah.
Oh, let's say 10.
Whoa. Okay. We're not going to map it all 10.
No. Oh yeah. Just do a choice. Do a choice of 2. Do it. Do a choice of 2.
2 is good. All right.
Yeah.
Pineapple. Is pineapple a choice?
Pineapple. Yeah, we were actually gonna say a Neapolitan versus a bar pie.
Okay. Do I have to be able to spell that Neapolitan?
That's close enough. Everybody heard.
Right. Again, the point isn't the spelling's trick. The point is you can read it.
Exactly.
About simplicity. And the other one was what? Bar?
Yeah, I just call it a bar style.
Bar style. Okay, so if we go with a Neapolitan, what's the recipe that we're going to follow here? What's the name or whatever?
Oh, just call it a thin crust, or that'll be fine.
Okay, so actually let's just go right into the activity then. So we're gonna start with a thin crust. Make thin crust. Okay, now let's keep going with that. So what happens after that?
So we're done with we're not picking ingredients or anything else like that. We're just making a thin crust.
We'll just simplify it, go straight through.
Okay, perfect. So now that we've made the thin crust, we're gonna gather our toppings.
Okay, put them on the pizza. Are we going to place them on?
Not yet. We're actually going to turn on the oven first.
Okay.
Sorry.
Ready. Turn on oven. Okay. And then what?
We're going to gather our toppings, or top the dough, I guess would be.
Okay.
If we want to keep it simple.
Put the toppings on the dough.
Yep.
Okay. Good to go. And then what?
We're going to check our oven temperature, because the Neapolitan pizza oven temperature is critical.
Okay, so you know what we're going to do here? So you could put a step here that says check oven temperature, and then a diamond, which represents a decision to say what's the oven temperature. But we're going to simplify this a bit. So instead of putting an action in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight to the diamond. And the diamond is simply going to say, is oven temperature
ready?
Oven temperature ready.
Right.
Okay, so obviously you have a range here, say 5 to 550. And if it's a yes, if it's a yes, what are we going to do?
And you're going to put your pizza in the oven.
Okay, so we're going to say this is a yes. And we're going to put pizza in oven. Okay. All right, so meanwhile, so we know that pizza's in the oven. So whether we build this pizza or this pizza, they're both going to end up in the oven at some point, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you know what? Let's go down this path now. So the bar style, what's the step here?
The step here is to make a medium crust.
Medium. All right, go with medium.
Yeah, sure.
Medium crust. Okay. And after that?
After that, then we're gonna turn on the oven again.
Okay.
So basically, the steps from here on out are going to be almost exactly the same.
All right. So why don't we just connect that up for the sake of simplicity, and we end up on the same path ultimately.
Yeah.
Okay.
So interestingly enough, if you want to complicate this, which I don't think we're going to today, each of these pies is actually going to get baked at a different temperature. So you could have a juncture at, is the oven temperature ready? Where is it at 900 degrees for a Neapolitan? Right. Is it at 620 for a bar pie?
So I'm glad you brought that up.
You could have a juncture there, possibly.
So I just want to highlight that for a moment, because what you might do here, so there's two perspectives. One, if you're going through a detailed process map, you might end up putting that in here. But another approach you'll probably end up taking actually is this process map provides you a high-level flow of the activities, the roles, what happens when it happens, but it doesn't go into the details of, for example, let's just say this question says, is the oven temperature ready? From here, we actually build out a procedure document. So the procedure document corresponds to each of these steps. So let's just pretend it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just pretend this is step 6. You have a corresponding Word document, and step 6 shows a bunch of details. And the details might be, if it's a bar-style pizza, this is the oven temperature range. If it's a Neapolitan pizza, this is the oven temperature range. So you don't necessarily have to create the juncture in the process map itself. If you have the high-level step covered, and this step is consistent across, let's just say you've got pizza shops in Alberta, BC, and Saskatchewan, and the process is the same, but let's just say the temperature ranges are different by province. If you have that word map or the procedure, you could put it within there. You could just put the details in there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll keep going. Let's go to the very end here. So we put the pizza in the oven, and then what? We're gonna.
We'll just say check it after 3 minutes.
Okay, so
you're gonna visually check it after 3 minutes.
So in that case, what we're gonna do here? So we're gonna wait 3 minutes.
And sorry, my brain is in the Neapolitan one, which is at 900 degrees. So it's only 3 minutes versus the 7 we did for ours. So it's
100 degrees, really?
Yeah, the Neapolitans are cooked at very high temperatures.
Wow. Okay. So then we're gonna wait 3 minutes, and then are we gonna take it out to inspect it, or just like look through the window?
We're gonna open the oven and look at it.
Okay, so let's do that. So
It's not like a cake where you're not allowed to open the oven. You're allowed to open the oven.
Open oven. Okay. And you're basically doing an inspection of the pizza.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and then you have a choice.
Visual inspection. Okay. Okay. So what's our choice?
Your choice is if it looks done, then you remove it from the oven.
So if the visual inspection is good, we're going to remove. Whoops. You say we're going to remove it from the oven?
Yep. You're gonna take it out.
Take pizza out. Okay.
If it's bad or undercooked, then we're gonna leave it in for another minute.
Okay. Leave pizza in, and you said for another minute.
Yep.
So we'll go here. So after, wait 1 minute. Okay, so here, if we take the pizza out and it's good, are we going to eat it at that point?
Yep.
Let's just say we eat it. Okay, so take the pizza out, enjoy it. And really, this is the end of that, right? Because this would be pizza, desire, satisfied. Okay, but if it wasn't, we leave the pizza in, we wait another minute, and then what do we do?
Then we visually inspect it again.
Do that again?
Yep.
Visual inspection, okay.
And
So
if it
this would
looks
be
good, then we're
bad. I could say yes or no. Okay.
Yeah.
So did we miss anything here? So we have a start. Oh, I didn't do the roll, of course. So pizza dude. No, pizza fanatic. All right, pizza fanatic. So pizza's desired. We go through what's the recipe choice. Let's say we choose Neapolitan. We make a thin crust. We turn on the oven, put the toppings on the dough. Oh, we need an OPATH here. So if the oven temperature is not ready, what do we do?
Then we close the oven and wait another 3 minutes.
Okay, so we're gonna wait. Wait 3 minutes. Okay, so after we wait 3 minutes, then what?
Then we're going to check it again, and if it's the right temperature, we're going to put it in the oven.
Okay, check oven temp again. So you check the oven. Oh, and then it basically just takes us back there, right?
Takes us back to
just,
put the pizza in the oven.
It's not pretty, but I'll just put it here for now. It's functional. Pretty's later. Okay, so then we check, is the oven temperature ready? If no, we wait 3 more minutes, check the oven temperature again. Is the oven temperature ready? Ultimately, we want to be on the yes path. So then we can put the pizza in the oven. We wait 3 minutes, open the oven, we check it. Is it good? If yes, take the pizza out, enjoy it, and all is well. And if no, leave the pizza in, wait 1 minute, and then go back, open the oven, check again. Okay, so that's an example of the basic process map. So we're looking at what is it, who's involved with it, what's your trigger, what's your starting point. It's so great creating diagram of something you can eat delicious. Yeah, I agree. But I didn't get to eat the pizza, so that's just me. My stomach, I can't hear myself over my stomach.
Well, I was thinking in the comments, Al, that we need to put something in there, how you stop your kids from stealing your pizza, because this is all that's left of mine, and I haven't finished my first piece yet.
We should have sent out some cattle prods.
Exactly, exactly. That needs to be added in there, right? When your kids come stealing your pizza, how do you beat them off?
Yeah,
I think Dorota just about choked on her pizza there when I said that.
So
I think that's key. Even Joel from McGregor, the kids were also eating his pizza, so that is a key item.
Exactly, and I think Cher's hubby already swiped some of hers. So
look what's happening here. See, I don't even have any control of that. So
yeah, exactly. So we have to add like a cattle prod or something in there.
Yeah, okay. Cattle prod to keep them away from the pizza.
That's a good idea.
Oh, I got a glare.
That's an important. Of course. Okay, so that's it. That's basically how you build the process map. It's got a start. It has a bunch of activities. Diamonds are always decision points. You've got clocks for waiting. And then, of course, there's always an end. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pause here for just a moment. Joel, is it okay if we pause here? I just want to ask some interactive questions if we could.
Yeah, so we'd like to put in this opportunity for anyone to just raise their hand, right, as Cash mentioned, and then we'll put you out of view, and you can actually ask the question. We want this to be as interactive as possible. So again, we're opening the floor to anyone who has questions. Please do raise your hand.
Yeah, so maybe while we're waiting for some questions come through, maybe I have one for you, Al. What's the program that that you would recommend to build process maps? Because not everybody has Visio. You know, Visio has a certain cost to it in that, you know, it is one of the higher end products. So what are maybe some of the products that you can recommend to any of our attendees that are watching today on how they can get started building a process map without maybe making the investment in Visio today?
Yep, definitely. There's hundreds of process mapping and diagramming applications out there. I'll start with the basic one because it was my first question. Which one's good and free? So that pizza looks so good. That's wrong.
This is the gluten-free one.
That looks really good.
Pizza.
It looks really good. Oh, good and free for Mac. I love that even better. Cash. Not the only Mac user. Okay, so good and free for Mac. Actually, for Mac, for Linux, for Windows, draw.io. So draw.io is, I would say, hands down the best free. There is a commercial version, not unlike, let's say you have variations of Unix that are free, like FreeBSD, for example, versus NetBSD or OpenBSD. There's a free version of draw.io. It has both a desktop version that you can download, or you can actually do it online in their cloud, but totally free. And as far as process mapping and diagram software goes, if I wasn't paying for anything, or even if I was, draw.io is actually one of the top choices in my opinion. Really, it's super easy to use, intuitive, works across multiple platforms, online, web-based, or download an application to your Mac or your Windows laptop workstation. It's awesome. The one that I use here is called eDraw Max. So eDraw Max is a commercial. There's a commercial license. It's not hugely expensive. I think a lifetime license per user was like 150 or $200 US or something like that, maybe 250. But it is awesome. I find it's very, very intuitive. It's very easy to use, and it comes with all of the templates that you need to start building out process maps and workflows. Visio, of course, is a top choice. It's well used by organizations all over the place. I'd say 3 out of every 4 clients are using Visio basically. So it's not something you would, if all you got was Visio, it's not like you would be missing out because the majority of organizations are using Visio. There's other ones that are online based like Lucidchart or SmartDraw. Both are very good as well. There's a cost to that. I think you could do it monthly for like $15 a month, or you could pay yearly, which is a little bit, you save a little bit of money there. I will mention, if you go to processprimer.com, I wrote a couple of blog articles, one on how to choose process mapping and diagramming software, and another one that says, here's some top choices outside of Microsoft Visio. So feel free to look at those as well. Yeah, so good question.
Yeah, and there is a question from one of the attendees as well. Okay. And I'm going to try to read this out. On larger processes, is it helpful to going
granular
or do with the core tasks and not get lost in the smaller options?
Larger processes is helpful. Oh, okay, so going granular or do with core tasks and not get lost in the small. That's a great question. That's one of the fears of people going down this rabbit hole we call process mapping. They're like, oh my gosh, is this going to be 1,500 steps when we're done? What's it going to look like? And then you'll have on the flip side, high level, no offense CEOs that just want everything's 5 steps and it's done. Like, isn't it? So it's a good question. I'm actually working with one of the clients right now, and I'd say there's a number, very, very large. We're trying to align leasing and rental activities across 5 provinces. And that has everything to do with from security deposits to rental lease applications to move in, move out. So to answer that question, it really sort of depends on the work group that you're going to be working with, as well as the people that need to see at the end of the day. So if your audience and your key stakeholders that need to see that are not the highly detailed subject matter experts that need to know all the bits and bytes of that, then I would recommend staying very high level with that activity and process mapping. But if you're trying to determine what process steps are actually being used in a specific department or use cases, you actually have no choice but to go into the low level detail. So you're going to create a lot of steps out of that. And there's not too much ways around that. I don't know if that answers exactly. And if not, let me know if there's a variation, Steve, that you needed to ask.
Yeah, and I think one of the great things about those maps, Al, at least what you did for us, was that we had a few different levels of process maps where we would have more of a general process map that showed more of a general process. And then in each of the subsets we went to the process, Al had hyperlinked. Then we could click on to say a certain process or a sub process to take us to more details as well. So you can get more granular, but sort of as you move up that stack of who you're going to be presenting that data to, some of that more detailed sub processes can be sort of hidden away into just like a process chunk. I would probably know the terminology better than I would, but that's a great way to be able to present it to different levels of the organization with different levels of detail.
Yeah, you do basically sub processes, and you can collapse them. So, for example, if you look at this, and I'm just going to move this so maybe you can see you'll be able to see on the bottom here, I have tabs. So let's say, as a good example, let's say I'm mapping out the processes for 3 different departments within your organization, Steve. So I might start with 3 tabs. So the first one, let's just say it's intake processes, and let's just say that's actually, no, let's go with customer processes. That's 1.0. And then if we have sub-process below that, it would be 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and so forth. Maybe 2.0 is going to be my accounting practices. And then maybe 3.0 is, I don't know, operations, for example.
Just
But
so you know,
have,
Alwyn, we can't see we can't see what you're referring to on your screen.
Oh, sorry, just down here. I just mean there's tabs here.
Okay, so we can't see the tabs, but not. I don't know whether it's important to or not. Just wanted to.
Got it. Okay. No, all I mean is what I would do to build that out, to break that out, Steve, is I would break it out into the high level categories. And then from there, I would break it out into the lower level process maps that need to come out of that. And then the process steps from there. So again, starting off high level, build out the sub processes and expand those out separately as needed.
Absolutely. And that's helped us a lot in terms of, like I said, when we're looking at different processes, looking at it from a high level, right, versus to some of our team that needs to then drill into some more of the details, right? So that's a great way to, take complexity and collapse that into something that is more high level.
Yeah. So just to pause on that, Cash, I know we talked to beforehand, and Joel as well. Does the group here, do we want to find out if the group wants to spend a little bit more time on process maps and procedure, or do we want to kind of keep going through the rest of the phases? We're open. Again, it's interactive, so whatever the group feels they're going to get some good value out of, I'm happy to answer questions or to go more with process maps or keep going with the overall process improvement activity.
Yeah, I think we're putting up the question to all the attendees, on your basically how you want to approach this moving forward. Again, Alwyn is here to provide that development support, and we're here to educate everyone. So please let us know.
Yeah,
for sure.
Either way.
Steve I see a plow on. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Exactly.
Okay, well,
and so just to everybody know, there are some additional questions and comments in the comments as well. If we don't get to that and don't get to answering it, we will loop back in with you guys and get you guys some of that answer to the questions.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So let's keep going here because we still got quite a bit to cover. So phase 2 is measure. So I'm going to tell you straight off, we're going to go through some of the key stuff here. Measure can be one of the most laborious and time-consuming phases of any process improvement activity, especially if you don't have metrics available and or they're not available in electronic format. So I'm just prefacing saying I'm not going to go into all the details of regression testing and all the things that could come out of the measure phase. because we could go on forever, really, in a lot of ways. So the very first goal is to understand process capability or performance. The second one is to identify relevant process performance metrics. And the third one is to establish a baseline for process performance. So here are a few exercises and activities. The first one, a very basic one, this has to do with identifying risk priorities for various inputs and errors within a process. It's called the failure modes and effects analysis. So as an example here, our process step in Trevor's case is we're going to say set oven temperature. The potential failure in that case could be we're setting it too low. What's the effect of that? Potential effect is undercooked pizza. So the severity is a rating of 1 to 10 in terms of the likelihood of the likelihood of it occurring. No, sorry, severity. The severity of that impact. So if you have an undercooked pizza, it's a 10 because basically it's completely useless. Like that pizza's done. There's no recovery. So the severity or impact is a 10. The next one is occurrence. So the occurrence is the likelihood for this to occur. So in this case, I'm putting it as a 2 because I'm making this up, Trevor. I'm saying, okay, you've got some things in place. Basically, this is not happening that often, so we're going to call it a 2. Detection ability is through 1 to 10. 1 just means it's automated, so we have the full ability to detect it, whereas 10 is you have no detection at all. So in this case, I'm going to pretend Trevor has something set up where it reads out oven temperature, and if it goes out of range, so above 550 or below 500, it's going to beep, it's going to let us know, or it'll self-correct. So in that case, our detection ability is a 1. There's no impact. Whereas if he had no clue what was going on, it would be a 10. The reason these numbers matter is you basically just multiply them to give you a risk priority number. So the severity times the occurrence times the detection in this case gives us a score of 21. Conversely, let's say we've got another process step, cooking the pizza, the cooked pizza temperature. Temperature should be in there. It should say just cook pizza. We're cooking it for too long and we get overcooked pizza. The severity in this case also 10. That's something you're going to throw out. The occurrence is a 7. So let's just say this is actually fairly likely to occur. For some reason, we've identified this as likely to occur. And I put a 10 here for fun because let's just say we have no ability to detect that. There's no monitoring that we have in place that's going to let us know that we've cooked it for too long. So if I multiply those, I get a 700 score out of that. And all I'm doing with that, with this particular matrix, is it helps us identify and prioritize what are the risks that we're going to look into because they're potentially more impacting. They're a higher priority or suggested to be a higher priority than the other ones.
Just so to know, we have a serious oven problem in this case.
Yeah, we got to buy new ovens. Kevin, I'm sorry, Trevor, we got to buy new ovens. Okay, so that's the first one. Very simple to use, used very commonly. The next one is, I'm just going to highlight, if you have existing metrics, I encourage that you use them, right? So if they're applicable to measuring the process, performance, and capability, use them. So here are some examples. Oven temperature, let's say our data source is a thermometer, lower limit, upper limit. This just means you verified the instrument. So I'll give you an example of why this matters. There's oftentimes you work in organizations where people are putting together reports based on data, and we don't know the source of those data. So there's one case where we had basically our official databases, people were pulling information out of there to populate into reports. Now, we're confident the data in that database was accurate. On the flip side, we had another person who brought forward reports that had different metrics to share with the working committee. Now, unfortunately, those different metrics, we couldn't verify the source of that because how this person had got those metrics, the data came from them filling out a spreadsheet every day for the course of a month. So, the instrument is not to say that they didn't do a good job or that's not valid, but that's got to be really important when you're looking at process performance and you're trusting specific metrics. You want to verify the instrument. And the same applies for if you're looking at oven temperature. So let's just say our data source for tracking the run chart of oven temperature is a thermometer. We want to make sure that particular thermometer is calibrated. It's verified and we know it's to be true. And therefore we can accept that and we can use it as the metrics. Okay. Average speed of answer, 1 contact resolution or one call resolution, depending on how you look at it. Very common for help desks metrics. Those are just examples of using existing. So let's just say you don't have any existing metrics. What are you going to do? You need to identify some. So I'm going to give you 4 tips, kind of ways to look at how you want to develop new process metrics. The first one is you're going to look at quantity versus quality. Oftentimes by default, quality is the more desirable one, but that doesn't mean quantity is unimportant. There's a lot of use cases where quantity is actually going to be very, very useful. And sometimes quality is actually not realistic to be able to achieve. So if you need to do, say, voice of the customer type surveys to get quality, you may not be able to do that quickly enough to be able to help you measure the overall performance change of your process. Industry standards available. That's what I love. No need to reinvent the wheel. Everybody's heard that. If there are existing metrics out there that have been established, don't bury yourself in efforts to try to create something new. So if one contact resolution is a thing out there and there's an accepted industry standard, say between 70 and 75%, unless you have a great reason for your organization to be different, start with that. You can always change it. Accuracy or approximation. So this one's important because kind of we want to be accurate, but we have to understand too, sometimes that's just not realistic. Either because you've got a large population, you don't have all the information that you need and you need to use sampling. Accuracy may not be the choice you could go with. Let's say you have 10,000 employees that you need to work with and you need to get information from every single one and you don't have any of that data yet. You may not want to survey the entire population. You may want to go with sampling and approximate those results. And my favorite is statistically different versus statistically relevant. So what I mean by that is, although numbers are different or statistics are different, that doesn't necessarily mean they're relevant to your organization or your department. And I'll give you a fun example of this. So this guy is obviously upset. Coffee prices went up by 50%. Who wouldn't be upset? So of course his buddy says, well, darn, how often are you buying coffee? And his response is, well, once a month. Okay, so if you're spending an extra $3 or $4 on coffee 12 times a year, you're talking $36, $48 a year of impact. Not relevant. Well, it might be. But in this case, I'm going to say that's not relevant. So even though it's statistically different, it's 50%, and that's substantial. The impact to this individual is just not relevant. So recognize that as you're building it out, so that when you're showing differences in stats, that they're actually relevant to whatever the topic is. And then what you need to do from there, this is this is the last slide for measure, is you're going to collect and organize the data. So you've figured out what it is you want to measure. You're going to collect that data. So do you have papers that you have to go through and you have to manually put stuff together? Do you have electronic data out of databases? Do you have a ConnectWise or a ServiceNow application that you can pull data from? You got to begin collecting that data. From there, you're going to run initial reports and establish a baseline. So your initial reports are telling you what's happening today, and you're going to use that baseline to help you identify marked improvement, which is where you're trying to go, or ideal operating ranges as well. From there, you identify those key targets or the ideal operating ranges. And then lastly, you refer back to these metrics in the following stages. I know I went through measure fairly quickly, but these are the high-level activities of how you want to get through that measure stage. Like I mentioned, oftentimes there's just a lot of heavy lift that goes through the measure phase, and it can last a good portion of the time. So I don't want to go into too much detail about measure because it could be quite some time. But anyway, we're going to move on. Phase 3, analyze. This is a fun one. Here, you're looking at your process root causes. You want to verify the root causes, and then finally, you want to prioritize those causes. And how do you do that? So first, you need to think about what is the approach that you want to take, and how is it that you want to, how do you want to address problems with your process? So the Lean Six Sigma approach is a methodology like anything else. I'm going to cover quickly Lean and Six Sigma, but I also want people to understand that, again, this methodology has to do with applicability to your organization or your department. The purpose of Lean is to reduce waste, to make a process more efficient. The purpose of Six Sigma is to reduce defects, to minimize the amount of rework, to ensure that you maintain your customer satisfaction level. So if you're looking at Lean, and I just want to do a time check here with Joel. Joel and or Cash, are you guys available for a sec?
Yeah, so we're at the 4:24 right now. So I mean, we've got this scheduled until 4:30. So we are a little tight on time.
Yeah.
You know, we took some liberties with the pizza for sure.
Yeah.
So how much more time do you think you'll need for the presentation, Al?
Well, if we want to do it in 5 minutes, I can do that. It'll be very abbreviated. Realistically, even if I skip some stuff, it's going to take another 15 or 20 minutes, I would say. So
All right.
up to you guys, I'm open.
Yeah, how about we we'll go 5 minutes over because I think we started about 5 minutes behind
Okay.
as well. So that'll give you about another 10, 11 minutes.
Okay.
And then from there we'll check to see which attendees are still going to be with us, and if they want to maybe spend another 5 minutes after that. So but yeah, let's do it that way, because I want to make sure this is good information, and for those that are really looking forward to finding out the rest, let's make sure we
Okay.
respect them and give them that time.
I will abbreviate the next bit of slides because I do want to actually get to the very end. If there's anything that we need to pause on or I can cover off after I finish it, and people just log questions, and then I'll come back to it afterwards so we get through all of this. And as well, the information's in your handbook for the most part as well. So even if you don't have to hear my talking head, you can read the handbook and it gives you a lot of great info. So Tim Woods is an acronym for Lean. It identifies the 8 categories of what's considered waste within a process. Now, I was going to go through examples for each one, but in the interest of time, I could do that later, or you could Google it, and it's maybe just as fun. Keep going. So Sigma levels. These specific levels have been identified through Six Sigma as this is what's considered. Number 6 here is considered a perfect process. And I know there's no such thing as perfect, but this is as close to perfect as a process can get. This is what they've determined. Now, when you're looking at Six Sigma levels and you want to figure out what's appropriate for your organization, again, it really has to scale to your organization, because if you look at, for example, Amazon, who processes and ships 1.6 million orders a day, the difference between 99.99966 and 99.977 in rework costs is over $5 million per year. So is that important to them? Maybe yes or no. And let's just say another business, they don't do even close to that volume. Going from Sigma level 5 to 6 probably doesn't make much sense, but maybe from a 3 to a 4, or maybe you want to set a target that's realistic and appropriate for your organization or department. It might be you're going to set 5%, 10, 15, whatever the case may be. I'm just sharing what the Six Sigma levels are in this case. All right, cause and effect diagram, also known as the fishbone for obvious reasons. So this can be used, you start with a problem statement, and then you begin to look at what are some potential causes of your issue under these categories: process, people, procedure, or materials. You don't have to look at the larger problem statement. You can also use this on a very specific problem. So with the problem with the pizza, let's just say the quality issue is that it is consistently overcooked. So that's the theme you're going with, and then all of these are going to relate to that one particular root cause problem, I should say, that you're trying to solve. Next one, and a lot of these, by the way, are great to, and I encourage you to work with your team on these. A lot of them are flip chart type activities. These days they're whiteboards and Zoom or whatnot, but definitely encourage you to work with your teams, SMEs, have fun with this, but really get their opinions going on what the causes are, what are the solutions, potential solutions, and so forth. If you have data available, as you guys already know this, I'm sure, if you spent any time in corporate life, you've definitely seen a chart or two. So whether that's pizzas, whether it's pie charts or bar charts or box and whisker or scatter plot, the only thing I want to highlight here is if you have data available, the Pareto chart is 100% our best friend. Anybody can read this table here with a bunch of numbers and figure out that 330 software update is our highest reason for incident, and the next one is planned change. So it's not that we don't have the capacity to figure that out, but if you're trying to share information and you're trying to look at it quickly, let's not make people do math in their head. The Pareto chart very quickly helps us outline what are some of the key items we want to address. And it's basically the 80-20 rule, or the law of the vital few. Root cause verification matrix. Okay, Trevor, our pizza's undercooked. So what are some of the possible root causes? Oven temperature being too low. We have to look at the method of verification. What that means is we're basically going to chart the oven temperature over time to determine if, in fact, the temperature being too low is an issue. And the reason for verification method, we're going to prove out that the oven temperature is consistent. Another possible root cause is the dough is too thick. This could go in different directions, but it could have to do with ingredients, could have to do with the content of the batches, bad batches. But what you basically want to do out of that is you want to identify the root causes, and then you're going to prioritize them. So based on what the team has figured out, here are all the potential root causes. These are the ones that we're going to go with and we're going to investigate further and look to improve. So that's phase 3. Phase 4 here is improve. This is also a fun part. This part here, number 1, identify possible solutions. Number 2, prioritize and select your solutions. And then number 3, test and implement those solutions. So the solution selection matrix is probably the best way to do this. So all this is take your problem statement. We talked about our pizza issues. We chose a root cause. In this case, I chose the one that says pizza dough is too thick. I look at, with the team, what are the potential solutions? Okay, we want to change the dough measurements because they're not right. How are we going to do that? We're going to test, we're going to create new dough measurements, and then that's how we're going to figure out what the right dough measurements are. The effectiveness is, you're going to basically rate this again on a scale of 1 to 10. So the effectiveness of this is a 6. And again, this is arbitrary for me, as it will be in your organization. As you're looking through the effectiveness of a potential solution, you're giving it a ballpark number here. I'm saying the effectiveness of this is going to be about a 6. Feasibility is, how easy or realistic is it for me to be able to implement this potential solution? The cost benefit is, what's the cost of me implementing the solution versus the benefit of us having solved this issue? And then I'm going to multiply those together for that overall score. Let's just say the second one, I go through the same options here, introduce a new, this one's funny. So instead of looking at the ingredients, I'm going to introduce a new dough flattening device or tool, right, Trevor? Because I think the dough is too thick. In this case, I'm going to create a tool that's going to fix that problem. I don't actually
engineer the solution,
right? So I think this is, effectiveness is going to be about the same. I think the feasibility is low because now I need to develop this thing. The cost benefit is low because this is going to be a lot more costly for me to figure out and implement than this. So out of that, I get my score of 40. And all I'm doing out of this is I'm probably going to take action on this solution and maybe not this one. Okay, so this selection matrix helps you kind of look at each of those potential solutions as objectively as possible to help you determine which ones you're actually going to continue to pursue. Okay, so then once you've identified your potential solutions that you're going to proceed with, you have a choice here. You're either going to pilot the solution or you're going to move towards implementation. In your handbook, I've outlined a few questions for you to ask yourself or your team to help you determine whether a pilot is necessary or not. Now, whether you choose to move forward with a pilot or not, these, for the most part, the steps of planning the full implementation or the pilot are going to be similar. But for the piloting of the solution, you guys have probably seen this before. It's the PDCA cycle, the plan, do, check, and act cycle. It's known as the continuous improvement cycle. You basically plan out the pilot. So I've given you details in each of your handbooks that outlines how you're going to plan out this pilot. What are the types of questions you need to ask? You're going to run or execute the plan. You're going to review the results. So you're pausing after that to see what are the results. Are they what we expected? Do we need to make some adjustments? If so, what are the adjustments we need to make? And based on that, you're going to make those adjustments and then you're going to run the pilot again. As I mentioned, this is actually considered the continuous improvement cycle. So a lot of you have probably already seen this. Okay, so it's 4:33. We're coming up to phase 5. The last 3 slides are going to take me, I would say, no more than 3 minutes. So can I burn through these?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I'm doing it. Here we go. Control. The goals: create a control plan, transition the process. Hey, if you're an ops guy like me, transition is very, very important to me and my team. And then lastly, of course, you got to celebrate. Whether it's with pizza or bar or both, you got to do some celebration. So creating a control plan. What is a control plan? A control plan is just a set of instructions that outlines what the process is expected to do and what the acceptable thresholds are for that process. And then lastly, of course, if you're an ops person like me, if it's not within the specs, what am I supposed to do about that? So here's the process. It's the make pizza process. One of the steps is to add cheese. We've created, hey, what's the quality metric here? It's the amount of cheese. The lower and upper limit specifications. How do we measure it? When are we sampling it? Like how often? What sample size? Who's the operator? Good old Tom. Where is this recorded? It's at prep station 1. And then what do we do? So if it's below 45, we're going to add cheese. If it's above 55, we're going to remove cheese. And then same thing for this. So as you can see, whether you create a spreadsheet or you have a paper document beside a piece of machinery, it's electronic, there's a variety. It doesn't really matter. You can choose whatever's appropriate for your team and your organization. But a control plan just helps people understand what the expectations of this process are and what to do if it fails. And in an IT world, this has a lot to do with things like P1s, P2s, P3s. So if you do operations, if you're help desk, if you're infrastructure support, and you're expected to implement this new project deployment, which has all this new infrastructure, okay, cool. What's a P1? What's a P2? And what are the expectations if that occurs? That's basically what a control plan is in the IT world. Transition operations. This I'll just highlight. It's important to understand, meet with the various stakeholders to determine if they're expected to support your implementation or the process improvement activities. What do they need to be successful? And it's really important to understand that from their perspective. Outline and identify what those requirements are, determine how you're going to transition that information or that training to their team, and then ultimately get sign off on it. And sign off is, it's not just about a check mark in a box or a signature on a dotted line. It's really hoping, if you will, that the operations teams truly have what they need, and they've signed off because they feel that we've done a good job of transitioning what's required for them to continue to maintain operations of that process. And then okay, so the last thing, of course, is celebrate, right? Yeah, my kids got
This is my favorite part.
That was my favorite part. So yeah, then the last part, of course, is celebrate, right? I mean, these are difficult initiatives oftentimes, and most of the times the process improvement ones are going to be up to 6 months. Project will be much longer than that, but it's important to recognize the efforts, the teams, the resources, and every individual as well. So how you do it is up to you. Just make sure you do it. And that's it. That was 3 minutes. Yes, got something right.
Good job, Al. Yeah, no, thanks for all of that. Attendees, thank you for sticking around. I really hope you guys learned something in here on how we're always constantly trying to improve our organizations, right? And some of the things that Al does on a day-to-day basis are to help companies to not only map out their processes, but then once the processes are mapped, find the opportunities for improvement. Because sometimes without getting it down on paper, it's hard to identify how do we get better, how do we move on. Right. So if anybody has any interest, like I said, Al's giving you some great information today. But if you do want to engage his services or ours to help your organization to really accelerate your change processes and to really get that down, let us know. You can contact Al directly, or you can contact us, and we'd be more than happy to put you guys together and get you guys supercharged on the process highway.
For sure. Stop that.
And if you would like to get more pizza, we can get you in contact with Trevor as well. So
yes.
Yeah, and if you, we'll send this out in the email. But if you guys, if you decide you want to order more doughs and sauce in the Calgary area, just the shipping to Edmonton was just an occasional thing. Use Shing15 in the discount in a coupon code area, and you'll get a discount for attending today and being great supportive customers. So Shing15, and you'll get a 15% discount.
Awesome.
Lovely. So as you guys are going through this process, just kind of last comments here, as you're going through the process internally, if you have any questions, again, we can put you in contact directly with Alvin. I think all of you have mine and Cash's contact information, so please do reach out. Please don't forget to post those pictures of your pizzas or maybe the process handbook, I don't know, and hashtag it's a Shing thing. That's, I think, all I have. Joel, over to you.
No, I
can't hear you, Joel.
Can't hear you, Joel. Well, Joel, we can't hear you.
There we go. We need a process for Joel to always check his microphone.
We need subtitles. Where are the subtitles?
Well,
I think the batteries on his headset died.
That's funny.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, well, I can close off for Joel.
Okay.
Again, thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate your attendance. Again, any comments, feedback, we love to hear that because we want to make sure that we keep providing you with informative webinars. So any feedback is so very appreciated. We will be sending you a copy of this recording shortly. And I think that's it. Thank you again, everybody, for joining.
Awesome. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.